Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast, Getting Started with Catalog Items in ServiceNow. My name is Kaylin Hensley, Marketing Coordinator with GSI. I'm also very pleased to welcome our main presenter, Robert Webb. Robert is a certified ServiceNow implementation specialist, applications developer, and systems administrator with 7+ years of experience administering, developing, and supporting platforms such as ServiceNow, Remedy, and System Center Service Manager. Now, before we get started, I wanted to give you a chance to review our Safe Harbor statement. Now for a quick overview of today's meeting, which will last about 60 minutes. First, we would like to take a moment to go over a couple of housekeeping items as well as provide a brief company overview. Then I will turn it over to Robert to get into our main presentation, which will last about 40 minutes. Next, we'll take a minute to go over upcoming educational events, and then we'll wrap up with a 10-minute Q&A session. If you would like to submit a question, you can do so through the questions panel at the bottom of the GoToWebinar console window located on the right side of your screen. Please note that questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. So if you would like to minimize your GoToWebinar console during the presentation, just click the right-facing arrow key on the top left of the console. Clicking the left arrow key will return the console so that you can input your questions. And now I would like to give you a brief overview of GSI. GSI is a full-service ServiceNow consulting organization. We were founded in 2004 and now have over 100 employees. We have offices nationwide and are recognized on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest-growing companies in the U.S. GSI specializes in project consulting, managed services, and other services, with all of our services backed with a 100% guarantee. GSI also provides a broad spectrum of business, functional, and technical consulting services for Oracle JD Edwards, Oracle NetSuite, Oracle Cloud, Salesforce, and other enterprise applications. We also offer an extensive array of cloud hosting solutions for Oracle Cloud, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and JDE Cloud 9. And now I would like to turn things over to Robert for our main presentation and demo.
Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about catalog items in ServiceNow, and I have a 10-slide presentation just to kind of go through some of the concepts and considerations of catalog items, and then we'll dive directly into a demo where I show you a catalog item that's already been created, kind of go through the components, maybe even mess with it a bit, and to give you a better understanding how easy it is to create a catalog item. And yeah, so let's start. So first is about ServiceNow. So if you are new to the Now platform, Now is a cloud-based platform. It's a cloud-based service provided by ServiceNow, allows customers to buy in or build applications that drive business process. It's effectively a workflow engine. It's a centralized data repository and an analytics powerhouse, kind of all wrapped into one nice, neat little package. So just a small line about what catalog items are, and they are simply goods or services a customer can request from the service catalog within ServiceNow, or through the service portal, which is more of a bespoke, customer-friendly version of the service catalog. So to start, there are 3 types of catalog items within ServiceNow. You have a catalog item, you have an order guide, and a record producer. Now, the difference between them is somewhat slight. A catalog item is simply a good or service that can be ordered individually. Example I provide here on the screen is that, typically you would order a computer, whether it be from Dell, whether it be from your IT department or whatever, and you usually say what specs you would like, right? That's a catalog item. What's typically not going to be a catalog item is, for example, a processor. Now, unless your Amazon store is selling the processors, that'd be one thing, but usually processors are part of the computer that you order. So while the processor wouldn't be a catalog item in our typical IT scenarios, the computer would be. An order guide just allows you to string together multiple catalog items. Again, the example here is like an employee onboarding. It allows you to effectively set up all the access and the hardware and maybe the badge and the facility access and kind of string those requests all together for a new employee. It streamlines getting employees on board and getting the access they need and allowing them to work very quickly, kind of starting at day one or as close to day one as possible without, a dozen different forms and touching a dozen different processes and tools and things. And a record producer, it's a specific type of catalog item that allows you to submit potentially forms or incidents or other non-request related things through the same portal. What it allows you to do is effectively use the service portal within ServiceNow to request a variety of different things. Anything from saying something is broke to requesting something new to asking for help to a whole lot of different things. But a record producer is typically one that will submit a record that goes to another process, like an HR record or an incident or any type of customer service case. Now, just a few considerations usually when working with catalog items. One, you're going to want to plan and evaluate all catalog items that you offer. Typically you want to focus on customer-friendly language, make sure that the customers understand what they're ordering and have as many choices as available. And it really gives you a good time to kind of review your process and figure out if you can take any advantage of any of the new technologies you may have introduced or will be introducing in the future. Another key is to kind of focus on the reduction of manual effort. A lot of times we tend to start in a tool and then we take it out of the tool, whether it be an email or writing a form to somebody and signing it or faxing something or sending in interoffice mail or any of those. ServiceNow can do notifications, it can do approvals, it can do e-signatures, it can, for the more technical, you can do a web service call and request something from another application. There's a lot of things that you can do that will help reduce the manual effort of actually fulfilling a request by one of your customers. The third one is let your process guide your decisions. Ideally, people, when first getting started, it's overwhelming, right? Maybe your processes are really well defined or not so defined, but let your process be your guide to which questions that you ask. Really, your process entry, your input, your requirements, data points, are what you're going to want to ask users. If you don't need that information for the process, you probably shouldn't burden your customer for providing it to you if you're not actually going to use it or if it's not meaningful. And then lastly, right, the catalog items don't have to be about IT. They can be about HR, security, customer service, whatever your particular business does. And you'll see that my example that we're going to provide in a catalog item is, it'll be familiar for some, but I'm going to leave that as a surprise. And then here's a few examples of catalog items, right? IT, HR, security, customer service, all of these things can be handled within the same portal with the same tool. You can report a security event, request training, report an issue, ask HR a question, all of the same things you might have to go to multiple tools to do today. All of these can be done with catalog items in ServiceNow, a single system of record. Now here's the heavy slide. It's important to understand this slide because this is how ServiceNow looks at catalog items to the actual request management process. It starts at the bottom left, so you have the service catalog where you have a catalog item. It's simply something your customer can request, right? They add that thing, provide all the information, they put it in the cart. Now, once they order it, it goes into ServiceNow's request fulfillment. It becomes a request record, so request record is effectively the cart, if you will. The requested item is the filled out catalog item and all of the options that you chose. And the catalog task is actually the record of action, is what I like to call it. It's the thing that your fulfillers will have to do in order to give the customer the thing that they requested. And those are tracked via catalog tasks. So as you can see, catalog item into shopping cart turns into a request. You have your items, and then you have your tasks for people to fulfill the service being requested. Now here are some considerations you can use whenever you are actually building your catalog items. You want to know which processes are you going to represent as catalog items. Which questions are you going to ask for each catalog item? Which catalog items require approval? Do they require approval? Is it necessary? How many tasks does each catalog item need? You could have something very simple that only requires a single task, or you could have something that requires 100 tasks. It's based on the process, it's based on your needs, as well as what your tracking and reporting requirements are. And of course, who should be able to request each catalog item? This is, entitlement is a very good way of minimizing the approvals required. If somebody is entitled to request something without approval, it makes it very easy to limit the approvals that you need from other people. So I'll show you kind of what user criteria and entitlements look like, but figure out who should be able to request each thing. Not everyone will necessarily be able to request all of your items, so it's something to consider when you start building them. And today, the demonstration, I'm going to show you a catalog item I built. I'm going to show you how I built it. We're going to go through some variables and variable sets. Variables are the questions. Variable sets are sets of questions that you can reuse in multiple different catalog items. I'm going to show you some UI policies and some user criteria. UI policies are the action thing that kind of give you some, the hide, show, read-only mandatory logic. And then, of course, the user criteria are entitlement. Who can request what or who cannot? You can determine that all on an item-by-item basis. And then, of course, I'm going to show you a little bit of the fulfillment workflow. I'm going to show you what I did and why to kind of route my, my item appropriately. And, of course, live product demo time. So, those of you who are familiar with ServiceNow are probably really familiar with the screen. Although if your organization uses it, it probably looks a bit different, but this is the standard ITIL homepage in ServiceNow. Now I've done a little bit of branding, but for the most part, this is an out-of-the-box ServiceNow instances. I have done some tweaks and some builds for the catalog I'm about to show you, but for the most part, it's pretty out of the box. Also, I have two tabs up at the top. One is for the browser, and I'm showing you the actual platform side of ServiceNow. The second tab is going to show you the service portal side of the house. And this is where we're actually going to start, because I want to show you the catalog item before we dig down into its components. So I'm going to go ahead and, in ServiceNow Service Portal, you can just you order something, you can search the knowledge base, you can get help, contact support, or offers a community questions and answers as well. We're going to go ahead and order something since I kind of know what we want. And you'll see here, I have some friendly items here. We can request coffee, request a muffin, or request cookie. I'm a coffee lover, so we're going to do coffee. And you'll see that each of these has a price. They don't have to have a price, but I set these items up too. So request a coffee. So now this is a pretty standard catalog item. I would say that it's slightly more advanced than a really generic small catalog item, mostly down to the options that we have. But you'll see that it looks very similar to a very specific coffee house if you are familiar ordering from them. You can see we provide a description of the coffee, light roast, house roast, dark roast, decaf. Also provide a little thing, reminder, recycling is awesome. Then we also have roast. These are variables. I can ask what roast would you like? I can choose a roast. I could also, if I wanted to, each of these things could increase or decrease the price. Roast, not so much, neither hot or cold. Although not a fan of cold coffee, it's here if you want it. I'm gonna stick with hot because I really like hot coffee. Now size. This is the drink size. Here's where we get to different prices. I can have a small 12 ounce, medium, large, or extra large. And you can see the price increase for each cup, and it takes into account the previous choice. So if I want an extra large coffee, which of course I do, and of course the cup size. If you've been to a particular coffee house, you'll know that you could also get a larger cup size than your actual drink, so you can fill it with all kinds of cream and sugar and maybe whipped cream and powder, sweetener, all of the wonderful things you probably shouldn't have, but we love it anyway. Also, you can even have, for example, I have a collector's mug. Not that it actually exists, but I wish it did. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. It's kind of an expensive coffee, but at least we get a reusable mug. Now, here is kind of where the add-ins come in. I can say, okay, milk or cream. I have all of these options, and I can select multiple if I'm feeling so inclined. I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, I want some skim milk. I want a lot of skim milk, but I also want a splash of heavy cream because I'm feeling dangerous today. So I'm going to go a little bit light here. So it kind of gives you an option of I can select as many options as I want in here, and then I can tell you again, ask you more questions about it. Do you want light cream, heavy cream, extra cream? What do you want? And you can quickly see how this, whatever your process might be, how many of your questions you need to ask, you could potentially use this for anything. Now, again, powder or sweetener, I'm not a fan of anything in my coffee, but let's do Splenda for the sake of doing Splenda. More like a half a packet if I was going to put some, but one works fine. And then flavors, while I'm not going to choose them, I'm going to show you the options. I'm going to get rid of that choice. I don't want it. Syrups, if I was going to use syrup, I could go crazy if I wanted to here, but I'm not going to because it is fine just the way it is so far. And of course, foam or drizzle. I could do whipped cream, but today is not a whipped cream day. Again, same with powder, seasonal. You get the idea. And then finally, I ask, would you like this delivered desk side? And yeah, deliver it to my desk. Again, phenomenal service if offered, so I recommend you try. But as you can see, let's go up to the top and we'll talk about kind of some of the things you see here. You'll notice we have the questions. I use drop-down questions, but you can also have questions where you can choose multiple answers. You have yes and no questions. We also have open text. I decided you can specify what shows up in this box when nobody types anything. All of this is configured. And this seems pretty simple on the surface, which is ideally what you want out of a catalog item. Of course, I can add it to the cart, and then I can go to look at the cart, and I could actually proceed to checkout. And I could actually order my coffee. I can order 10 of them if I wanted to, but I'm only going to do one. I'm going to go ahead and check out. Now, again, this doesn't charge. This is more of an organizational cost. Not saying you couldn't charge or link it into whatever POS system you might have or any type of accounting system you might have and do something there. But for right now, this is more of a representation of what this particular item might cost. And you'll notice here, I can see I ordered a coffee. I can even see what the status is. It's currently waiting for assembly, so by the cafe staff, right? Eventually, I'll be able to see if it's out for delivery and it's completed, and if it ends up getting canceled for some reason. And I can track this all in real time as assuming that the cafe staff are updating the tasks behind the scene. So it gives you a pretty good idea of the capability of just a single catalog item in a familiar format in that you are ordering coffee. So we're going to go to the platform side where we construct it. And I can actually show you the different components that I use to construct the catalog item. So I've made some favorites on the side just to make it easy for me to navigate during this demo. But simply, if you've never used ServiceNow before, you would type in what you want. For example, let's say I'm doing incident. I could actually make incident a favorite, and it shows up on my favorites now. I don't need incident, so I'm going to get rid of it, but that is how easy it is to create favorites so you can start working. Now, we're going to start with the items. I'm clicking on, this goes to all of the catalog items in the system. Now, there's a lot of information here, but what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the coffee one first. So I'm going to open up the record for the coffee, and you can see the name of the catalog item is request coffee, which is consistent with what we see right here. And I'm going to do a bit of swapping back and forth so you can see what actions affect what on the catalog item. You can see it's part of the service catalog. Now, if you're familiar with service catalogs, maybe you have more than one, maybe you just have one. Whatever your requirements were, you can put it in any catalog. You can also give it any category you want. I chose Happy Hearts and Quick Minds because I love me some coffee and muffins and cookies, but coffee. And of course, caffeine is wonderful and it makes my mind quick. So that's what I chose. I can choose what it's available. So it can either be available via the browser on your desktop, or we can limit it to mobile only, or we can limit it to desktop only. You have options as to what the availability of your particular request. Obviously, if I need to deactivate it real quick because maybe we have a problem or we want to update it or whatever, you can deactivate it and it immediately moves it from the catalog. And then, of course, short description. All of these things get used in the catalog. You can see this is meant to be a very concise description of your catalog item. And of course, you get a little bit more robust um, experience down here that allows you to format and color, etc. And I will go back to the service catalog to show you what that looks like. So actually, let me go. So you can see here is the name of the catalog item followed by the short description. And then, of course, this is the description where it gives you the formatting options. And of course, you can add some meta tags if you wanted, so that way it makes it easier to find your particular request. Maybe you call, for example, an application, people might be requesting access to 3 different names. Well, you can put all 3 different names separated by commas, and the user can find the request regardless of what they call it versus what somebody else might call it. Now, process engine. This is where we define kind of the behind the scenes, where what workflow fires or execution plan. Workflow is a very robust part of ServiceNow and allows you to do a lot of automation behind the scenes. Whether it be assign it to this group, make a web service call, change some values, or whatever custom code that you might want alongside a really friendly drag and drop interface. Execution plans are a lot simpler. They're effectively a list of tasks that you want to create in synchronous order. They don't offer the robustness of workflow, but that's also their main benefit, is that they are very easy. I might say I need 2 tasks, one fires after the other. I can make that an execution plan. Someone submits the item, and that's what happens. You don't get the pizza tracker, as I like to call it, where it tells you what stage your item is in the fulfillment process, but it does give you some really good information. It does make creating these very, very simple. Of course, what would a catalog item be without a picture? You could use whatever picture you want. I chose a generic looking coffee in our colors because it looks great, and also just for demonstration purposes. Now, for a mobile picture type, you could define whether or not you wanted to use a mobile-friendly picture. Maybe it's something that scales a little better on screens, or the desktop picture. I chose the desktop picture because the picture I'm actually using does scale on both. You could also hide the price in mobile listings if you wanted to. Again, it's just giving you options. You don't need to choose all of these. It's just something to do. And of course, pricing. Now, you could say, okay, this has a fixed price like this one does, which is increased by options, or you could have a recurring price. Maybe this is a service that someone has to subscribe to. You could choose your recurring price over there, and of course, the recurring price frequency. Now, the meat and potatoes of a catalog item is variables and variable sets, the stuff you see here at the bottom. Variables, very simply, are questions that you are going to ask your customer when they fill out the item. Variable sets are sets of those questions that you could reuse in multiple catalog items. You'll see that I don't really have many variables here. I have more variable sets, in fact, than I do variables. And that's because I built all of my questions using variable sets so I could reuse them later. For example, if I wanted to create a request for cappuccinos or frappuccinos or whatever amazing drink that you like, you could create a catalog item specific for that and also get the options I used here. Of course, UI policies provide a bit of logic that allow you to effectively hide options, show options, make options read-only. And you'll see that I used a bit of that here, right? So when there's a question back here that asks you how much 1% milk you want, but you don't actually see it until you choose it as an option up here. That is driven by UI policy. Catalog client scripts, it's a bit more advanced. I'm not going to go over it in this session, but catalog client scripts allow you to use JavaScript that is rendered in the browser that allows you to do a bit more advanced things with your catalog items. I'm not using any of that here, but if I was, this is where those scripts would lie, so that way I could keep track of them. Available for and not available for are entitlement. It is user criteria. It is how you decide who is allowed to access your catalog item, or you could effectively blacklist as well, who is not allowed to view this. We can determine that here, and I will go over those in a minute. And of course, you can have multiple categories. You can put this item in multiple categories or catalogs if you had a business need to. I mean, there are a few scenarios I can think of. Maybe you have different business units that want to share the coffee catalog item, and maybe you don't access each other's portal or something like that. But it's really dictated by business need. You don't have to have it in multiple categories and catalogs, but the option is here if you need it. So we're going to dive down into the variables. First, I'm going to show you what a new variable form looks like. And then I will show you how I configured one of the ones I have. I'm not going to save this one, but I will show you. Live demos. All right, so here you can see that it's a very simple looking form. We have the type of variable, and there are a lot of different types. You have everything from a checkbox to a date, time. You can ask for an email address. You can have HTML in case you want to give them a formatted box they can use to provide things. IP addresses, labels. It just provides a label to the form and allows you to organize your information. You can do a list collector. A list collector is effectively a multi-select list. It allows you to choose multiple options in the same list, which is actually what I use pretty heavily to give us those like the 1% milk and 2% milk choices. And then you can have macros, which allow you to do some advanced scripting to add unique either widgets on the service portal or potentially other type of logic in the platform side of this. Masked is something that you see like when you type in a password, right? So when you type in your password in most websites, all you see are asterisks. Same concept here with mask. You can provide an information field that effectively gets masked as you type if there's some type of sensitive data that you want to show on the screen, or even really to be in the record once it's created. Multi-line text is here, and it just gives you multiple lines of plain text to use. And then you have other things. Reference select box is a box where you can select. It's similar to the drop down for yes or no. Multiple choice gives you radio buttons, so that way you can click and choose options. There's a variety of different types of variables you can use. Which you use is based on whatever design you need, whatever your requirements are. Then you simply say whether or not it's mandatory here. You can even disable or enable questions as you go through development, or even when it's in live if you find you have a problem with a question or you want to stop asking a particular question for whatever reason. And then, of course, you have order, which tells you which order it's going to show up on the form. Then you have the question name. This is the actual question here. This is what the users see whenever they go and request something from you. And then, of course, the name is more back-end. You have to provide every field that you put on a form with a unique name on the back end, and that's what gets referenced either in scripts or system-level stuff. You can add annotations. You can show help text, give people more information so they know why you're requesting a piece of information or what specifically you're looking for. Now, every single type of variable has different specifications you can add to it. Single line text is very simple. It's a single line plain text, and that's all there is to it. But you can actually get something a little bit more advanced. For example, if I wanted to reference values in a different table in the system, I could choose reference. Then I could have a table that I specifically choose, and then I have a qualifier, which is a filter on that data. So it provides users with a filtered list of responses. And it's something that I use also, which I will show you. And here you can define a default value. You can also define attributes. Some variables have attributes. Like, for example, on some of the questions that I use here, these actually have a filter and actually can look very different. But I chose them to look this way by using a few attributes that I commonly use, and it makes it look very clean, and there isn't a bunch of filters everywhere where you have to dive down into more details. Useful if you have very small lists of things. Then, of course, permissions. You can even, on a catalog item, say who can read or write or any of the questions that you ask the users. It's a good way of providing the same form to multiple users each maybe have specific questions tailored to maybe their region or location or even language or whatever you might need to ask one user one question and another for the same catalog item. So I'm going to go back to my catalog item using the history, and I'm going to show you what a completed variable looks like. And it's the roast question, very simple one. So here you'll see that I chose a select box, which gives us a nice little drop down. And I chose the question roast, and then I gave it this name, which is a common, if you're used to ServiceNow doing anything behind the scenes, you'll know that usually custom fields and values start with a U underscore, which is why I chose it, just more of my kind of picky details that I like to do when I build them. And then of course you will see the question choices down below. I have house roast, dark roast, light roast, decaf, and the values behind the scenes. These are the values used in scripting and or system functions. This is what the customer will see. I can add a different price based on the variables. So if one costs more than the other, I can account for that, which I do when I ask for size. And then of course the order 1 through 400. This specifies the order in which the options appear. The lower the number, the more precedence that particular choice has. So house roast will always show up before decaf when I have this order. And you'll see that I default it to house roast. I don't really have a whole lot going on here, but you can see that I have other options here, like I can choose a table, or I can include none as an option. And that's really it. So I'm going to go back. Now containers are useful. These are containers down here, these variables. They're used for organizing your information on the page. They allow you to do maybe a single column answer, which is what you see. I have a dual column here, but I could just as easily have rows span the entire column. They're useful for look and feel of your form. I have a very, as I build these and as I've gotten better, I have a very kind of feel for how I like mine to look. They're very easy to do and very pleasing on the eye, but your mileage may vary based on what your requirements are and the way that your preferences are. Now, we're going to dive into variable sets. And remember, variable sets really are just a set of variables. So you can see here that I have a title, which is also the way that it would have shown up if I'd actually checked this box. So like I can check this box here. We're going to save it. I'm going to refresh. And you can see drink details is here. But I don't like the way that breaks it up, and it's not that important, so I'm going to get rid of the title again. But I have it there just because I like clean and consistent fields. So you can see I have an internal name here. And really, again, this is just a grouping of catalog items. What this allows you to do is rapidly add choices to other catalog items. I put all the effort and logic into these, and so I can reuse them over time. I ask 2 simple questions. What size of drink would you like, and what size of the cup? And then I have a UI policy, and what it does is just make the variables read-only once they are submitted, so that way no one can go in and change the answers once it is submitted. And you'll see here, size, I'm going to show you the size because I added the price portion to this. And you can see the different prices that I have for the different sizes. I can go back to, and once I have these blocks of questions, I can really add or remove them as I need. So if I don't want to offer the toppings choice anymore, I can save this. And the toppings choice that was here is now gone. No more toppings. If I wanted to bring the toppings back, I can add the toppings back. And now the toppings are back. And it's the same if I go back to one of my other catalog items and I go to request a muffin. You'll notice that I have the finishing touches that gets used over and over again, but I can add the toppings to that one if I wanted to. Not that it makes sense, but we can. Go to cookie, and I'm going to add, you see I have the finishing touches one, but I'm going to add the toppings. The benefit of variable sets is one, reusable blocks of questions, but also you can update the questions one time and it updates throughout the entire catalog item. Oh, I should probably choose the right one, huh? You see toppings are now here. Don't necessarily make maybe whipped cream on your cookie. I'm okay with that. But you can see how once you do a bunch of variable sets, it makes it really easy to rapidly create new things. So UI policies, they're just logic based. So this one is basically saying once it's submitted, so it applies on the catalog item view, right? You have the catalog item where the user is requesting it. You have the task view, which is where the actual record of action is taking place. And you also have the requested item, which is the form representative of the thing that you ordered. What do I want to do? I want to mark these. I want to mark cookie type read only because that's the only question in this catalog item. Read only whenever it's submitted. So that way no one can change it. And that's simply what this does. And there's a lot going on here as far as just all the different fields and what they mean. But ultimately, this controls your logic. I can make it read only. I can make it mandatory. I can make it visible. I can hide it. Very easily change these if you need to on the fly. So I'm going to go back. User criteria. We can by default, if you do not specify a criteria, any user that can access the system can access your catalog items. You can change that in the properties, but for the most part, that's what it is out of the box. But we can change that by creating a new criteria. I can basically say, any only users in the Acer company can access this particular catalog item, and that's what this does. And now this is only available for Acer users. And so if I go back to the service catalog, refresh, may take some time to disappear, but I'm also admin. If I go to impersonate Norman Normie and I restart, you'll see that I cannot access a cookie anymore because Norman Normie is not part of the company, is not part of the Acer company. But if I impersonate go back to administrator again, it shows up. So we can use one catalog for multiple companies, user criteria, anything you want. The power is kind of at your disposal. Let's go back. And then finally, I'm gonna take you a quick trip through the workflow. Now, if you're familiar with ServiceNow, you will know that the workflow is very drag and drop friendly. My workflow is called Cafe Request Fulfillment, and it's pretty simple. I'm going to check it out just so that way we can modify, tweak, and move things. But you can see that as soon as somebody orders the item, this workflow fires. What ends up happening is I have an activity that waits for cancellation, right? And if this gets canceled, then it cancels the order, sends a notification to the customer, and then ends the workflow. However, here is a task for the cafe staff. You'll see that this gets assigned to the cafe staff group, and it tells them that someone has ordered something from the cafe. And you can see that I have all of my options. There's quite a few of them in all of those variable sets. And any of them that are chosen by a user will show up there. And I can show you what that looks like. Here I'm simply going to the requests in the system. This is the one I ordered when we first started. This is the request record, the cart. Here's the actual item that we ordered. And here are the choices down below that I chose. You can see that they're all read-only, so no one can come in here and change them once the order has been placed. And if we scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that there is a task that is tracked and can be assigned to a user to fulfill the order. And of course, once we complete the task, we will see that my request moved forward. Now it's out for delivery. We have another task for that. It gets assigned to a delivery man. He delivers the coffee. And you can see that here as well. It says basically the order is assembled. And then I have a logic question. Is this a delivery item? Did the user choose to have it delivered? If they chose yes, then I create a task for the delivery staff to go and do. Once they deliver it, it sets the request to completed. It notifies the customer, and then it exits the workflow. If they did not choose delivery, it puts it in. I have a timer that's set for 15 minutes that will keep the item in the status of waiting for pickup for 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, I have it just going through the process. The order is completed. The user gets a notification that the order was completed, and it exits the workflow. And this is a very, very, very easy drag and drop interface. For example, if you wanted to add an approval to your coffee, not that you would, but maybe this is some really special stuff, and you want to make sure that you get the right thing. We can say, we can add approval. And I have approval, and I simply can drag and drop the lines. So for maybe I want to put it actually right here. Drag and drop this, and get it out of the way, and kind of rearrange some of this. You can see that effectively, if it's rejected, I can say request canceled. But if it's approved, we can go to this. And of course, you can clean this up as much as you want. There's a lot of options here to make it look clean. And so now we know if it gets approved, and we can choose who approves it. Maybe you have a user defined in the system. Maybe it can be the requester's manager. I can put myself there or whoever I want to approve it. And then we can change it to say when it's approved, it goes through the process. When it isn't approved, it goes through the cancellation process. And each of these states are configurable in the drag and drop manner that I just showed you. If I didn't want the notification, I can remove the notification. Yeah, I want to delete that. Yeah, I don't want that notification either. So we don't want the notifications anymore. They won't happen. Maybe we want to take out the delivery portion of it. I can say, we're not going to support delivery anymore. We need to either A, remove this, and now we have no options for delivery. Now it simply just goes to order assembly and waiting for pickup. And you can add any conditions that you want, approvals, whether it be a single user or a group. We can add notifications. For our advanced users here, you could actually make a web service call if you wanted to. I think I may have to turn them on for that. It looks like I do, sadly. But I could fire a SOAP message or a REST message to an external system and have an action take place. Maybe this is a real catalog item you want in your enterprise. I can request that the coffee shop then create it in their POS system, and then they bring it when they can. And that's a pretty abbreviated view of the service catalog items. There's a lot here, but this is kind of should give you an idea that you can create just about anything represent your business process within the service catalog. I created a coffee ordering form. You could just as easily put an access request. And if we are perusing the out-of-the-box catalog, you'll see that not every item has to ask you 100 questions. There are some very simple catalog items. For example, I might want a new computer. So we're going to say desktops. We have an executive desktop. We know the price. These are just questions that we can ask, how much memory, hard drive, etc. Or it could just be a mobile phone. I want an iPhone 6. What color would you like? How many gigs of storage? Right? It could be peripherals. We could say, I need a monitor. and your department only offers one monitor, so that's all they have. That's no questions. This is just an item. It allows you to track the item. It allows you to put somebody on the work to get it to the user. Maybe it's fulfillment. Maybe it's someone pulls it from stock or has to order it from planer. You can do many things with the service catalog. And I think that is it for now as far as the demo is concerned. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to you now.
Thanks, Robert. Now I would like to cover a few follow-up items and then move to our question and answer section of the webcast. Our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series on ServiceNow. Our webcasts are listed on the screen. To view our most up-to-date schedule, please visit www.getgsi.com/ServiceNow webcasts. GSI provides extensive free educational resources for the ServiceNow community, including our weekly educational webcasts, an online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, etc., and online and virtual workshops. And if you would like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for our upcoming webcasts or create an account to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to Platforms on the main menu, and then select ServiceNow and select the appropriate link on the left. While I see that we've already had several questions submitted online, I would like to remind everyone that if you would still like to submit a question, you can do so using the questions panel in the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. If you minimized your console earlier, please click the left arrow to redisplay the questions panel. Okay, our first question comes from Tyler, who asks, can you trigger actions in external applications via the workflow?
Absolutely. The service catalog and the catalog items support making any SOAP and or REST calls or really any API that you really want to use with anything that you order within the service catalog. So you can absolutely trigger things in other systems.
Okay, thanks, Robert, and thanks, Tyler. Our next question comes from Kathy, who asks, is there a limit to how many catalog items you should have?
Absolutely not. How many items that you need in your catalog should really be determined on what services that you offer. I prefer on catalogs to have one option representing one thing. However, I've seen where people had a single option that had a very robust amount of questions, and you can order many things. It's really up to you how you organize your catalog, but you can have as many items as you want.
Okay, thanks, Kathy, and thanks, Robert. Our next question is from Olivia, who asks, can catalog items be requested through the ServiceNow mobile application?
Absolutely. So the mobile application allows you to do most things that you can do right in ServiceNow. And one of them is, of course, accessing the portal. And any catalog items that have been set up to be allowed to be accessed via mobile, you can absolutely do that without any issues.
Okay, thanks, Robert, and thanks, Olivia. Okay, that appears to be the end of the questions. Thank you, Robert, and everyone for your questions today. As a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit. You will be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website where you can access the recording from today's webcast as well as a copy of the presentation. After today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card. Anyone who attended the entire webcast will be eligible. We will notify the winner. If you have any questions you can contact Robert or I, and we will get back to you. Our contact information is on the screen. Thank you again for attending our presentation, and have a great day.